Hi, everybody. I'm Eric Gensler, Capacity Interactive's president. I'm a white man with brown hair, brown eyes, and a navy blue polo shirt. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I'm coming to you from the traditional territory of Mohican land in upstate New York. The teaching of US history has left out many voices and difficult truths of forcibly removing people from lands they inhabited. So in order to create an idealized nationalistic identity. So it's important for us to recognize and share the history of our land. I also want to use this platform to say Black Lives Matter. We see you. We are angry and saddened after the murder and senseless gun violence at the hands of the police, most recently against Jacob Blake in Wisconsin. Now, as part of our ongoing work to be more inclusive, we're evolving our speaker introductions to include visual descriptions, pronouns, and land acknowledgements. We're far from experts in this, but we'll pass along resources in the follow-up materials for this event so you can join us in this learning process, as many of you are doing live events as well. Now, the pandemic has forced us all to ask many difficult questions, so here is one. At the most fundamental level, what is an arts organization? The best definition I could muster is an institution that curates and shares art. And for at least as long as anyone watching has worked in this field, the sharing part of that equation mostly happened in person. With few exceptions, we produced, raised money for, educated, and marketed our offerings with the end goal of gathering in person. So when the ability to gather was put on indefinite hold this past spring, we all faced a future, at least in the short term, that most of us simply were not prepared for and are still learning. If we still wanted to curate and share art, we had to figure out how to do it virtually, which opens a huge array of questions about how to distribute, price, produce, raise money for, and market streaming art, which is why we're gathered here today. Now, we're all still in the early days of this discovery, and I think it is safe to say that no one has figured this out yet. We're in a moment of experimentation of every element of this, from the infrastructure we use to the roles in our teams to business models and everything else. But in this moment, it is critical to learn from each other, which is why we've gathered 5 practitioners who will share what they've learned with you later today. I want to look at some quick data about organizations and audiences and their response to paying for digital content before we get to our guests. Now, from the organization side, according to a study of 133 arts organizations from TRG Arts, only 36% of organizations plan to offer paid digital content in 2020, a majority of which plan to introduce paid digital content in advance of paid in-person performances. 52% of participating organizations in that study do not have plans to offer paid digital content within the next 12 months. Now, from the audience side, in a recent survey of audiences in the broader American public from LaPlaca Cohen and Slover Lynette, more than half of respondents reported participating in one or more digital culture activities during lockdown, and 13% of people reported paying for cultural content. Quick aside and plug, our latest podcast episode, I had Arthur Cohen from LaPlaca Cohen as my guest if you want to learn more about this study. But to take some data from it, if the US population is 330 million, and we say on average people will pay, say, a modest $20 per year, which is the number I just picked, at 13% of the population doing so, that is almost $1 billion market. However, that same study shows that the majority of the paid content is paid directly to artists themselves. So this has certainly opened up an important dynamic about the role and value of the arts institution in the distribution of art. But this way of measuring a transactional market that I just did is a short-term way at looking at one-to-one return. You sell one event, a customer buys one event. If someone is willing to pay for a concert or event, we should really look at the longer-term value of content exchange in terms of loyalty and lifetime value, meaning the way we measure a ticket sale in the before times may be the wrong model to value a one-time digital purchase, especially since it's incredibly hard to show an ROI for a digital paid event, given the cost and what you can realistically charge when Netflix is offering the highest quality content and is charging only $13 per month. The more realistic model may be looking at the long-term value of providing valuable content and events for people who care about you over time. More of a content marketing model, like what we talk about at Capacity, using what we call the 70-30 rule. 70% of your content is giving, being generous, offering connection, offering things people love, so you earn the right to ask, which is the 30% part. By the way, the numbers 70-30 are there to illustrate a concept rather than be a law to be followed to the exact T. Now, the last stat I want to share before going to our guest is from a study from Today Ticks, who asked their audience whether the Disney Plus streaming of Hamilton negates the live experience. Of those who watched the Disney streaming version and have not seen the production live, 39% said they are now more likely to buy a ticket after seeing the live stream, or it's not live, the stream. From this example, we see that streaming, if done well, actually encourages live participation. And as we are moving to a hybrid future of digital and in-person events, I thought this was an important piece of data to include. Now, there is so much to talk about that I, rush through, and I'm thrilled that we have 5 arts administrators from theater, opera, music, and the museum worlds here to share how they've monetized content during the pandemic. Now, I will interview each guest, and there'll be plenty of time for your questions. We are going to go until 2:15 today. This is such an important topic, so please enter your questions in the chat at any time, and we will get to them at the end. So I'm pleased to welcome our 5 guests today. Should we go back to our guest? Thank you. Gwen Watkins, who's the CMO of Houston Symphony. Gabriela Jirasek, the Director of Digital Strategy from the Goodman Theater. Annie Penner, the Network and Social Media Manager from the Dallas Opera. Lisa Martin, Vice President of Educational Operations from the Tenement Museum, and Frances Howorth, the Director of Marketing at the Irish Repertory Theatre. Thank you all so much for being here, and I'm so excited to talk to you. So now let's go to our first guest. Hi, Gwen.
Hi everyone. I'm Gwen Watkins. I'm Chief Marketing Officer for the Houston Symphony. And we're located in Houston, Texas, which is the native lands of the Karankawa tribe. And thank you, Eric, for that suggestion. It was fun to read about the history of that tribe here. I am a white woman with reddish hair, and today I'm wearing this green shirt. And my gender pronouns are she, her, and hers. So the Houston Symphony is a full-time orchestra. We're currently comprised of 84 musicians. In a typical year, we perform close to 200 concerts in our hall, Jones Hall, ticketed concerts through our Pops, Classical, and Family series. And then we participate in around 1,000 community-based programs. So live streaming, like everyone, we jumped online in March. Our musicians were so fabulous in sharing content from their homes and recording things, and we were giving a lot away for free. But quickly as an organization, we decided it was really important to us to start recreating live performance and also to continue to place some monetary value on what we do. So we began with our first live stream series May 15th. The series is called the Living Room Series. So they were recitals effectively from musicians' homes. And we did those every Friday night through May and June. And then in July, we transitioned to in-hall performances from Jones Hall with small socially distanced chamber pieces. We just completed our 8th week of that last week. And we call those the Live from Jones Hall series. And I think I have a clip to share.
Great, let's check it out. Beautiful.
Yeah, so we've been really happy to be performing. We've been charging $10 per concert since May. So that's been happening, and our plan right now is to continue doing these every Saturday evening through our season. And we are mirroring what was announced in our season. So we're continuing the classical performances on those scheduled weeks and pops on those weeks. And then we have 4 Saturday morning family concerts per year. So we'll be doing those regardless of any potential in-person audience or not. And I just want to underscore, because in talking to colleagues, some people weren't clear on this, that we are doing fully live. So we are not pre-recording, we're actually live performing as you watch it. So to get into the kind of logistics of it, we've been selling through Tessitura and Tinu as usual. It was really important to us to continue to have that like easy transactional experience for our patrons. Some of our older patrons had a little bit of a learning curve because we had to get a good email address for them and make sure they could receive the email links, but that was pretty easy to get past in the first few weeks. And I also understand that Tessitura is currently working on what they're calling gated links, which are unique links per purchaser. So that's really exciting, and we'll be eager to try that out. So then the ticket holder would receive a link to YouTube Live 24 hours before the concert. So the downside of YouTube Live is that there are not those unique links. It's one private link. So the link holder is the only one who can find it. You can't like Google and find it, but it is in theory shareable, which is why we don't share it with the ticket holder until 24 hours before the concert. And we use Wordfly, which is our email marketing service, to send those. And it's connected to Tessitura, so that's also very helpful for the database management. And we've seen that the views on the videos really mirror our ticket sales. So we aren't seeing widespread abuse of people sharing the link or anything like that. And I should add that the YouTube live chat area during the concerts is very popular. And then as far as attendance and revenue go, so our living room concerts, we're averaging around 500 ticket sales per week with a high around 650. So those were the May and June concerts. And then once we returned to stage in July, since then we've been averaging about 900 tickets sold per week with a high of around 1,400 one week. And I just want to reiterate that we consider that, we multiply it by 2 to consider how many people we think are actually watching, because we only require or ask that 1 ticket be purchased per household. So our plan now is to raise prices to $20 starting Labor Day, which is our first regular subscription week. And we have rolled out a digital subscription package, which those subscribers would receive a 25% discount. So they'll be buying $15 tickets. And the digital subscriptions basically just mirror the typical subscription packages that we would offer. And it's been really handy as we've been talking with subscribers who aren't able to return to the hall this season, because they can swap into the digital subscription. And we're also now going to start focusing on selling those more publicly. And the last thing I wanted to add in my time was a note on add-on donations. So while we've been seeing the ticket sales, of course, come through pretty much since May, we've been able to consistently count on an additional 50% in revenue coming from add-on donations. So at the point of sale in Tinu, we do a suggested donation amount, and people are really generous in adding those. We have a high take up on that. And we were actually suggesting a $10 donation, and we raised it to $25 in late July, and that's worked well for us. The average donation has gone up about 20%. So we've been really happy with that, and happy that people are so generous. So I think that's about all I have time to cover right now.
That was a fantastic summary. Lots for us to think about. Please answer or ask any questions in the comments, and we will get to them at the end. Gwen, thank you so much. I'd like to next welcome Gabriela Jirasek, the Director of Digital Strategy from the Goodman Theater. Hi, Gabby.
Hello. Hi, my name is Gabriela Jirasek. I'm the Director of Digital Strategy for the Goodman Theater in Chicago. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And I am wearing, I'm a white woman, and I have dark brown hair with a black suit jacket and a blue and white shirt. Chicago is the traditional homeland of the Council of the Three Fires, so the Odawa, Ojibwe, and Potawatomi nations, and other tribes like the Miami, Ho-Chunk, Sac, and Fox also call this area home. So the Goodman Theater is approaching our 95th anniversary in a year or two. We're in the heart of the Loop in downtown Chicago. We are a LORT theater, And we actually have two spaces, the Albert Theater and our Owen Theater. The Albert Theater is about 850 seats, and the Owen is about 400, configurable based on what the designers want to do in there. And I'm here to talk about Schoolgirls. So our project specifically was, we were, before Illinois shut down in March, I think March 13th was the actual day that the order from Governor Pritzker came down to close all large gatherings. We were kind of aware of what was happening around the world and of course around Illinois and Broadway. And we had on our stage Jocelyn Biot's production of Schoolgirls, or the African Mean Girls play, directed by Lillian Brown. It was their first preview week. And, you know, it's just really painful because we actually didn't even get to opening night of that production. And it was a fantastic show with a lot of local talent who were making their debuts at the Goodman. So we were really, it was really a tragedy that this couldn't actually be seen by more people in the city. But as things started to kind of roll around, our leadership thought, you know what, we need to jump and capture this production with a more streamable experience in case that possibility comes up down the road. So we have two in-house videographers, Cody and Alberto, shout out to them. And so what happened was we had our final performance on March 12th, I believe. And then we reached out to cast members because at that point there were restrictions on you couldn't have more than 200 people in a space. So we invited a few of them to ask their friends and family to attend the production, and we kind of socially distanced them in the theater. And so we had a performance that was just for the video capture of this event. So from that date, March 13th, our executives had been in constant contact with the actors' equity unions, the stage directors' unions, all of the assorted unions that we work with. And they came to an agreement fairly quickly to allow us to stream this production to our audiences. And I think one thing that was really smart was that our executive director, Rock Schalfer, wanted to be able to provide this event for free to our current members and also single ticket buyers who already had tickets. But we also wanted to sell tickets to people who had not yet seen the production and still wanted to see it. So within 2 weeks, I worked on putting together a platform to try and make this happen fairly quickly. So we first went with a product called Sprout Video, which is more of a secure hosting platform for video content. So the way that it works is that an admin goes in and can create an account and a password that's unique for each user. And then we can grant them access to specific videos within that system. So for the first go around, what we did was have the video up on Sprout Video as a platform. And then we would have anyone who wanted to buy a ticket could purchase a ticket through our website. And we're a Tessitura system. That's actually Uscreen. That's our second platform. So Sprout Video, the first thing that you would do, you would buy the ticket through Tessitura. Then you would get an email the next day that had your login credentials to view the performance. It wasn't the most streamlined process because one of our staff members had to go in and every morning enter the new purchasers into the system. And then this word fly email would be triggered and sent to them. So it worked, but it was, I think, a little bit hairy for us internally. And so we had this running for about a month, so pretty much the whole month of April, and then we were able to do an extension on that. And at that point, we switched to a different platform that was much more streamlined, and it's called Uscreen. So with Uscreen, it's actually much more like an immediate video on demand system. So yeah, this is our homepage. That it's a very simple. It has several templates that you can use and totally customize. And basically, you would just click the button and you would rent it, and you would have 24-hour access to watch that video. So that was much cleaner, but also it's not integrated with Tessitura. So the downside to that was getting a lot of that patron data into Tessitura afterwards was a pretty manual process as well. So there is no necessarily perfect platform that we have hit on yet, but the thing that we liked about Uscreen was that it was a much cleaner user experience. People had immediate access, and they could also cast the video to their smart TVs or other devices that they wanted to, watch on a larger screen with. So that was kind of the process there at the very beginning. And I think one of the really great things is together, these two platforms, we actually made over $80,000 in sales in providing people access to schoolgirls. It was what we usually saw was that there was about a $20 average ticket price. The first time we did it, we actually had 4 or 5 different price levels that you could select from. So I think the starting price was 15, and then we did like 25, 50, 75, 100. And from the average of all of those, it was about $20. So with Uscreen, we could only have one ticket price. So we made that price $20. And, I think it worked really well from that regard.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to talk about in pricing. I thought what was amazing with you all, it was like so early after, everyone was on lockdown and the stay-at-home orders that you came out with this, and it was kind of miraculous. I remember talking to a friend from DC who said, "Oh, have you seen the Goodman's production of Schoolgirls?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh, you know about that." So it definitely, your speed and quick pivoting, I think, paid off.
Yeah, and you really have to give props to our video team for helping make that happen. I think they edited the actual footage together in about a week, and we also, our videographer Alberto, created closed captions for the entire performance as well. So it was a massive amount of work to achieve it, but I think it was really special to be able to share this performance and try to make some of the lost revenue up from not being able to have a full run.
Yeah, and the questions I want to get into talking about how you worked with the unions, and I know you moved away from equity to, is that right, to SAG?
No, we're still, because we're a Laureate theater, we work with Actors Equity and all of the other stage unions associated with that as well. So there were individual contracts, I think, with each of those unions. All of our artists were paid for the full run of the production. That I think was really important and something that we were proud to be able to do.
Wonderful. Well, I look forward to chatting more at the Q&A. Gabby, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'd like to next welcome Annie Penner from the Dallas Opera. Hi, Annie.
Hi. As we said, my name is Annie Penner. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I am a white woman with blonde shoulder-length hair, hazel eyes, glasses, and I'm wearing a black dress. I'd like to begin with a land acknowledgement that I am on stolen land that was forcefully removed from the indigenous peoples of this area, the Kickapoo, Jumanos, Tawakani, and Wichita peoples. I am the TDO Network and social media manager of the Dallas Opera, and I'm really excited to speak with everyone today about TDO Network, or the Dallas Opera Network, and how this project came to light. TDO Network was born out of the current pandemic, and it was actually the brainchild of David Lomeli, who is the Dallas Opera Director of Artistic Administration, and he is now the executive producer of the TDO Network. Like many other arts organizations, we were forced to make the difficult decision to not only cancel our March performances of Don Carlo, but the remainder of our spring season. Upon this decision, though, we were fortunate to have an acclaimed baritone with the Dallas Opera put on a live streamed recital in March. And after promoting that online, sharing it organically, within 2 days, we had 50,000 Facebook views. And that's when we realized we might be able to take that a little further. We knew that if we wanted to stay connected with our community, we would have to be on their screens with engaging and consistent content. So after some scheming and research with that, TDO Network was born. We began collaborating with artists that we believed could create original and entertaining content. As the success of our first few series grew, so did TDO Network itself, coming to 13 series a week by May and eventually hitting 10 million in reach by July and over 11 million as of last week.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Our main goal for the network was to create original content based on the Netflix model for all ages, genders, and demographics in order to present an array of constantly evolving programming that's balanced in gender, ethnicity, and opinion. The 4 words for our content inspiration are engage, inform, question, and entertain. The series range from interviews with major artists, lifestyle features, in-depth discussion on diversity in the arts, sketch comedy, coachings, advice on how to succeed in the opera business, and much more than that. And with everything going on in our country currently, we're especially proud of one of our series, Taking the Stage with Christian and Quo, which is hosted by TDO staff members, Christian Roberts, Director of Education, and Quodizia Johnson, Education and Company Culture Manager. Their series does not shy away from discussions on racial justice, inclusion, equity, diversity, and more. Their content is extremely important. It's fantastic, and it's getting a lot of traction, not only in the industry itself, but with all of our viewers. All of our series are posted on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and a Netflix-style landing page on the Dallas Opera website. Over the last 5 months, we have worked hard to lay the foundation of our network and acquire a loyal audience. And within those first 3 months, we hit the monetization criteria on Facebook to allow us to begin monetizing on that platform. And now that we have such a firm foundation and following, we're working on some new projects to take our network to the next level through subscription-based content and pay-per-view online experience.
Amazing. So you took the, I'd like you to just briefly explain the infrastructure. So you're gathering the programs on your website, but you're distributing them primarily through
Facebook, Instagram. Yeah. So that's where we archive all of our shows so that similar to Netflix, you can watch them whenever you want there, and they're all in one place. But we do stick to our showtime schedule on social media. That's when it's initially released, and that's where we market it the most. But we want to make sure that it's accessible to all different ages and people with different preferences of how they like to view content. That way, if you're not as interested in being on social media to keep track of that, that it's always going to be updated on the landing page. And if you are more interested in social media, you can keep up to date with the new episodes there as well.
Yeah. So you're not charging, and I'm curious if you could talk more about like how the Facebook monetization is working and why you chose Facebook over YouTube.
Sure. Absolutely. So we currently, this is our free bar. So all of the content is free to our viewers. And, of course, we take donations, but you can watch it. There's no paywall there. And in order to get the Facebook monetization, we had to really, really lay that foundation for our fan base, because they do have a pretty strict set of criteria that you have to meet in order to break that wall. So that's what we spent a lot of our time doing, is really working towards hitting that goal. Now that we've hit that goal through the streamed ads that they use through their creator studio and their ad manager situation, we can use that. And every time someone watches one of our shows and there's an ad, we're able to monetize with that system.
Yeah. And are there plans to charge for content in the future?
Right now, we're actually developing a few projects to be launched in the fall, and those projects will be a little bigger, and they will be more subscription-based or pay-per-view based. So right now, we're working out the finer details of exactly how we want to organize it and the way that it'll be most accessible to our viewers. But we do have some big plans to drop in the next month or so.
Amazing. Annie, thank you so much. We'll have lots of questions for you in the Q&A.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah. I'd like to welcome our next guest, Alisa Martin, the Vice President of Education Operations from the Tenement Museum in New York City. Lisa.
Hi, it's a pleasure to see everyone today, or as if I can see you all today. Yes, so I'm Alisa Martin. And I am a brown-skinned African-American woman coming to you live from indigenous lands of the Lenape and Canarsie peoples, also known as Fort Greene, Brooklyn. And at the Tenement Museum, I run the Educational Operations Group. And the Tenement Museum, we're located on the Lower East Side of Manhattan. And in normal times, we see about 280,000 visitors on site. Our structures are, we've got two historic buildings, tenements, that were home to people from the 1860s through the 1980s. And our focus is on immigrants, primarily, migrants, who, regular people, so telling the lives of regular, ordinary people who made their lives on the Lower East Side, and making the connections from the past to present. The only way to visit the Tenement Museum historically has been through guided visits. So our budget was based on having 75% of our budget coming from earned income. So for us, upon shutting down, once COVID had the impact that it did on all of us, that really meant switching gears. So we're going to show what we're focusing on right now, and then I'll backtrack a bit and show you how we got there.
Great. See the video.
Good afternoon, friends.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Welcome, everyone, to the Tenement Museum.
Bonjour, hello.
The Tenement Museum's private virtual events offer experiences like no other. We provide unique opportunities to stay connected with your family, friends, alumni group, book club, or company. Your group can visit the museum from anywhere in the world.
We're going to learn about the history of pickles.
These two buildings are really the heart of the Tenement Museum.
And the Tenement Museum hired Dr. Geismar as an archaeologist.
During a live interactive event, a Tenement Museum educator takes you inside our historic tenement buildings. Using video, oral histories, and expert commentary, the educator immerses you in the stories of the immigrant and migrant families who lived in our recreated apartments. Just like in-person tours, groups will learn about daily life in the past, explore our spaces, and create connections between history and the present. As families, friends, and coworkers look for new ways to share experiences, the Tenement Museum is exploring virtual avenues where people can be immersed in our stories, connecting them with the past and with each other. To book a private virtual event for your group, visit tenement.org.
It's a great video.
All right, thank you. So what we did first off was really asking ourselves what was most important. And again, with a model in which it is guided programs in spaces that are 325 square feet, it was very drastic. And so what did that look like? What was most important? So we knew that we wanted to maintain relationships with our audiences, and our key audiences are schools, families, tourists, locals. we wanted to, for us, we unfortunately, in shutting down, that meant layoffs and furloughs. So we were working initially with a skeletal staff. But we knew we didn't want to stay that way. But we also knew that the institution itself, we have a small, on a normal year, we have a budget of about 11 million and an endowment of only about 3 million. So as an institution, we were in danger of going under. So it was, you know, what can we do to survive? What can we do to prepare staff to come back? And when they did come back and when we could offer work again, to make sure we were as strong as possible. We knew we needed to explore new revenue streams, but given that it was a skeletal staff, we had to think about, well, what could we do with limited numbers of people? Fortunately, there were some building blocks that we had to work with. So we already had an immigration curriculum that was very popular with instructors, not only in New York, but across the country. We were already starting to look at distance learning. We have an online exhibit called Your Story, Our Story. That's a way in which people all over the country share objects of importance to them and stories about those. We already had rich tour content, an online shop, a history of doing book talks, and a relatively new flexible website. So with those tools, we focused first on fundraising and meeting audience needs. So monetizing was not on the horizon at all. The real focus was making sure that, again, given that we were in survival mode, if we are clear that we are serving our audiences, well, then we are an organization worth supporting. So that meant that we had our gala went virtual. It was scheduled for April, so it still happened. I think the goal had been to raise 700 million. I wish 700,000. 700,000. We made a little over $1 million. And it was also an opportunity to experiment. So what did that look like? We looked at different kinds of content, knowing that our model was these guided programs, and that is primarily what people think of with the Tenement Museum, or a walking tour for about 6% of our audience. So we experimented, we created demonstrations, interviews, virtual field trips, virtual special events. We looked at the format, comparing the difference between doing things live or recording programs. How important was it for there to be an immersive experience? We played with having one presenter, having two presenters. Roles started to become clearer, realizing that if you had a lead educator that behind the scenes, you had a production assistant who was monitoring the chat, especially considering that some of our audience, especially as we were working primarily in the spring, these were teachers trying to figure out what to do with their classes, or parents on the other side, what to do with their children. So a lot of this work was navigating these family audiences. So monitoring that chat with children behind the scenes was a job in and of itself at times. The platforms that we are working with have been Zoom and YouTube, and we have found it when we're always using Zoom, but Zoom is either for a private event where it is, it's a one-time thing, and then it may be recorded for that group to hold, but then it's over, or Zoom is the platform, but it's broadcast on YouTube. And the benefit to those events is that they have a life after, and then people are still able to watch. After some of the initial tests, we did a digital user survey to just get a sense of, well, it looks like we might be able to start charging for things, but can we check with our audience and see? So when we emailed a survey to our local and non-local subscribers, as well as former visitors, whether they'd been whether they were engaging with us digitally before or maybe had only visited, and we heard from about 553 participants, and about that's 40% said that they would be willing to pay for virtual experiences. Another quarter were clear that they would not pay. And when asked to describe through multiple choice what kind of experience they wanted, more people said that experiences closer to the tour experiences that they had before were what they were looking for. In terms of monetizing, initially we were looking at suggested donations, and we were seeing that those donations were, could be anywhere from, on average, maybe it was $5, maybe it was $10, but sometimes there were significant donations that were happening. And we struggled with the technology of doing that initially. And at first we were using a passive request for donations in the form of a donation button on either on the event listing pages, on the confirmation pages, on YouTube descriptions. So that button just moved all over the place at first. And in no time did it yield quite as much as we'd hoped. It turns out that having that donation widget on the registration form has been our best bet. And so we continue to do that. In terms of how we're charging, again, for us, because so much of the time has been really still experimenting on what we're offering, it has been, the gist of it has really been looking at, when is it that we're using, when are we doing the $10 for the public event versus when might we be able to have a special event that's at the $350 and up. So we are still tweaking that and watching to see what our audiences are going to do, how they're responding to the different content that we're putting out now.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. Yeah, so much to think about, especially of pricing and with a small team and limited resources, going after the $350 versus many people with the $10 purchase. So I'm excited to talk more about pricing in the Q&A. Lisa, thank you so much. We're going to move on to our last guest, and then thank you everyone for all the questions. There's many of them. Hello, Frances from the Irish Repertory Theatre. Welcome.
Thank you so much. So my name is Frances Howorth. I'm a white woman with long, dark blonde hair and brown eyes, and I'm wearing green. And there's construction outside my window, so I apologize if there's noise. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm speaking to you from my home in Brooklyn, New York, which is the historic homeland of the Munsee Lenape people. This land has also historically been cared for by the Canarsie people. Irish Repertory Theatre is an off-Broadway theater dedicated to presenting the best of Irish and Irish American theater year-round from our home on 22nd Street in Manhattan. In non-COVID times, we present between 10 to 12 productions annually from our 2 venues. We are about to begin our 32nd season under the direction of our co-founders, Charlotte Moore and Kieran O'Reilly. We're known for high-quality classical productions. Last year, Irish Rep was named Theater Company of the Year in the Wall Street Journal by their theater critic, Terry Teachout. When theaters shut down, we immediately began creating digital content, and in May, we became the first off-Broadway theater to announce a full digital summer season. So today I'm here to tell you about how at Irish Rep during the past 4 months, we've used free digital productions to create a grassroots fundraising effort, resulting in 6,500 donations and enough funds to cover more than 40% of our operating expenses during those months. For today's conversations, I want to focus specifically on our full-length productions, which we call performances on screen. We've done 1 per month since May, and they've all followed the same pricing and presenting model. And we began with Brian Friel's Molly Sweeney. So I've identified 6 key elements to our producing and presenting model for those performances on screen. The first is that these are all new productions that we have made for digital viewing. We don't have an archive, so we had to create in this time. They're all pre-recorded. They're not live events. And we've done limited runs. This is because we were limited. We are an Actors Equity venue, and so we worked with Theater Authority to create an agreement that gave us 4 days to distribute our digital content. And then we had dedicated screening times rather than making our productions available on demand. We do 6 screenings per production. Registration is required in order to access our links. So we use our existing ticketing system and to distribute an unlisted YouTube link via the pre-show email to all registered attendees about 2 hours before each show. We manually update that link for each screening. Having a registration system in place allows us to set capacity limitations, and of course it's better for data collection and for contacting people if we need to. And the final part of this is that we've gone with a suggested donation model. So we are not, all of these events are free. And we decided on a suggested donation model basically in late April when we were planning all of this. It was already clear that we were in for a long economic crisis that was going to affect a lot of people in the arts. And we wanted to make sure that anybody who wanted to was going to be able to watch these performances with us. And we also have a very loyal audience and fan base, and we knew that those people would turn out and they would support us and they would make up for any revenue lost by deciding to make these events a suggested donation model. And we were absolutely right. They've been amazing. And the choice to make it $25 is because we thought people would give less than that, but we wanted to anchor high. When we talked about setting prices, we initially talked about maybe $15. And then it's also, that's $25 is a price that you can pay to see an Irish Rep event pretty easily. It's not our standard pricing, but we offer a number of discounts and we're really public about it. So that was important to us as well. As for the logistical platform side of it, for ticketing, we use our current platform, which is OvationTix. It's not perfect. There's some manual fixes to make it work with all the links, but it works. For streaming, we use YouTube Live as our primary platform. Of course, it's ironic because these events are not actually live, and we don't mean to be disingenuous. It's just the best way to do a timed platform experience, and you can't do with the YouTube Premiere function. It has to be public, and so Live was our best bet. We did try to switch to Vimeo Live, but our patrons were much more comfortable using YouTube because it's just a more common platform, and so we went right back to YouTube. In order to stream a pre-recorded video on YouTube Live, you need to use a third-party platform. And so we have open broadcasting. We started with, for Molly Sweeney, with OBS, open broadcasting software, which is totally free. It was great, except for it relies on the internet connection of one person to deliver the whole video. So obviously that was a huge risk. So after our first production, we switched over to Restream.io, which is a paid platform for all future productions. And now for the fun part, our takeaways. So we've learned a lot in this process. It's kind of insane. But the main things so far are that, one, asking people to register for digital events really pays off. So obviously there are the marketing reasons, you're getting data and contact information, but the main reason is that it allows you to request a donation when people register. And I can't stress enough how valuable having that in the same place as people's registration has been for us. We did one event in late May where we asked people to donate, but the event was totally free. And we sent out the link, but we didn't ask anyone to register. It was on demand. And for that event, we had 48 people it's still up there. So people are still donating every now and again. And so far, in 4 months, we're at 48 people. Whereas for Molly Sweeney, in that 4-day run, we were able to get 1,500 unique donations, and 80% of our unique donations are coming in when people register. They're not coming in after they watch. People really want to do that in one transaction. And then the next is, and this was a surprise for us, is that the suggested donation amount is really important. So we're finding that between 40 to 50% of people are donating for our event, but of the people who donated, and I created a graph about this, a little chart, to show what they're giving. So we expected people to give less than that $25 amount, but in fact, 62% of the people gave exactly that $25 amount. And then another 18% gave a multiple of that. We did ask for people to give $25 per viewer. And only 20% of the audience gave any amount that wasn't in that $25 or a multiple of it range. So that is, of course, representing just donors, and that's it. And then another takeaway that I haven't really been able to go into, but we found that customer service and audience communication and planning all of that out was really key. Our audience struggled a lot with learning how to use our new technology, and so we had to create a lot of resources and dedicate a lot of staff time to helping them out, but we've really seen everybody learn really quickly, and we've seen a major drop in recent events with how many people need help. So that's been really nice to see. And then our final lesson is that digital events reach new and different audiences. So for our 4 performances on screen these past 4 months, we've had over 1,500 viewers, and half of them are completely new to Irish Rep. And half of those have opted into our marketing list. So it's been a major, major benefit for us from an audience development standpoint. And of course, it's increased our geographic diversity, and it provides accessibility options that we're just now beginning to explore. So we're really excited about that. It's been amazing. And these are just some of the things we've learned. I just want to give a quick shout out. We're a staff of only 12, and that includes our artistic personnel. So this has been an all hands on deck summer, and I'm really grateful to be a part of such an amazing team. So thank you to them, and thank you, Eric and the team at Capacity, for letting me talk about it.
Yeah, Frances, thank you so much. Congratulations to you and your team, and to all of our presenters who have just pivoted and been so creative and really had a iterative mindset. And I think it's so interesting that we've seen so many different kinds of ways of charging, ways of putting together programming, giving stuff away for free, charging for things, thinking about donations. There's so much to talk about. So I want to bring everybody back. And we've had lots of questions. So thank you to everyone who's submitting questions. We're going to try to get them in groups. And so just some of the themes that we've seen. And I don't feel like everyone has to answer every question. If you feel strongly about it, like raise your hand and we can cover that. But I think one of the big questions was looking at geography, like locally versus bringing in audiences from afar. So I'm curious if you could talk about how you've seen audiences, like local versus far, and then if you're advertising or reaching out specifically to local or broader geographic audiences. Who wants to take that first? Gabby.
So we definitely have seen kind of a huge array of locations that people were watching Schoolgirls from. I think it was over 40 countries that were tuning in, which was very cool and I think exciting for everyone. Most of our targeting was still kind of limited to theater familiars that we have like within our system already. So, our database is pretty large from having many years of ticket sales. So I think the biggest areas we saw were like Chicago area, LA, New York, in terms of consuming the product. But we did do Facebook advertising and had a really great ROI with that. And I don't think we really limited location very much. So that was a big advantage of having something as a digital product.
Yeah. Frances?
Yeah, so we saw just a major expansion of our reach. In 2019, Irish Rep, 85% of our audience was from the tri-state area. This summer, it was only 62% from the tri-state area. So we've just seen a massive increase in people watching from all over. Gabby, like you, we also just didn't restrict our Facebook ads in the same way. So usually we would only advertise to people near us. And of course we did a nationwide campaign, but we've also seen people from all over the world tune in, which has been really wonderful.
Jump in as well. Yeah, we similarly did some adjustments of how we were targeting when we started the network. We wanted to make sure it was available to as many areas and people as possible. And we were able to expand to 50 different countries, which is exciting. We mainly do most of our targeting towards major cities, and especially ones that have opera, just so we can maintain that audience. But we also have a really fabulous local community, especially for shows like Taking the Stage with Christian and Quo, who have established such a fabulous relationship with our Dallas community. And the loyalty of that audience is really strong as well. So we're very excited about both the local and the broader audiences that we're continuing to build.
I should say too that we had a review in the Wall Street Journal that I was on the final weekend of our initial stream that like had a huge impact. I mean, we sold so many more tickets just in that one weekend.
Amazing. Alisa?
Yes, I was just going to say that we also have seen people from outside of our normal groupings, and a lot of that has been in part due to press. We really don't have a dedicated marketing budget per se. We can't usually afford ads, so more of it is what's happening on social or what media placement we're able to get.
Yeah. And your email list has been fantastic, I should say.
Yes, we work to keep the the email list grows with as people purchase tickets. We use All-True, so but the challenge is we're always talking to the people who are already in our bubble. So the press, each time there's press, that helps the bubble grow.
Certainly. Should we round it out? Gwen, I know you had some data about that, so do you want to?
Yeah. In Houston, we don't get tourism at all usually. We say 5%, but I think it's actually less. So it's been really exciting for us because we've had close to 20% of our audience coming from out of state and even more coming from out of Houston. So that's really exciting. We've been doing digital advertising, which we've seen great ROI on, and it's very inexpensive. But also a lot of grassroots marketing going after, like if we have a guest conductor going after their market and trying to expand into other places that way. So we've definitely seen the audience base grow, but a lot of our sales do come from email from our database.
Sure. There's a number of questions around copyright, like if anyone has anything to share about how you handle copyright issues on recordings, or if you've had any issues with YouTube's terms of service, anything like that.
Well, I can just jump in and say we clear copyright like we do for normal performances. So we are reaching out to copyright holders and getting those permissions and paying for them as needed to avoid any issues. And we haven't had, in our live streams, we haven't had any challenges with YouTube pulling things down or interrupting.
I can jump in as well. Yeah, we have pretty strict rules with AGMA and AFM, so we have to be creative in how we use those pre-recorded materials and how we use our orchestra and things like that. We find ways to incorporate that into our work, but it's one of the reasons we were so excited for a chance to make truly original content. Was that we knew we wouldn't be tied so strictly to those rules. We could pick and choose more where to sprinkle it into. But we still, nonetheless, we actually did still experience a couple issues here and there, even if it was just some background music for one of our series. If it incorporated a classical piece, sometimes we got flagged. So we had to get creative and work around that and deal with those issues as they came up. But we've found ways to make it happen.
Great. Does anyone want to talk about how they've worked with unions, maybe challenges they've had, pivots they've made?
I can talk a little bit to that. So as I mentioned, we are currently on an agreement with Theater Authority, which brings together several different unions for fundraising agreements. And that gives us 4 days with the content. We have been looking into other things. All of our artists are signed with the Screen Actors Guild because we're creating this content not live, but remotely and editing it afterwards. It is sort of a hybrid film theater model. And so we have not used a Screen Actors Guild contract yet, but we are on one. As well.
For us, I'm not the expert on any of our contracts at all. I work on the digital sphere mostly, but as a LORT theater, I think that there were special agreements that were made with all of the unions before we actually started streaming the performances. So that was obviously a big part of the work that was happening behind the scenes.
Great. Okay. There's another theme of questions is around pricing and monetization. I'm gonna say a few things and you all can choose what to answer, but someone asked about the process for deciding what to charge for access to live streams, managing the idea that digital subscriptions are lower cost than in-person subscriptions, and if people had bought, did you refund additional dollars? And then there was a number of people asking about the, Annie specifically, if you could give more detail about the monetization criteria on Facebook. So who wants to start?
I'm happy to jump in and answer that specific question. So I believe it is 30,000 views for videos 3 minutes or more for 60 days consecutively is the criteria that you need to meet in order to reach a certain threshold to allow for the beginnings of that monetization process. So we had a lot of work ahead of us. So we really spent the first few months of quarantine really just focusing on that goal. Also, of course, because we wanted to grow our audience in general. It wasn't just the monetization, but it gave us some specific goals to work towards as we grew our audience and grew our programming and figured out our new system. Something that's been extraordinarily useful as well is after meeting that criteria, we actually had the ability and have been consulting with some of the Facebook marketing team themselves, and they've been working with us and us with them to really fine tune all of our systems, the way we're marketing, the way we're doing our ads, in order to optimize that system that they have in place. So that's been really exciting to discuss with them and to continue to really narrow things down and find the best way with experts from that exact platform.
Any other pricing thoughts that anyone wants to share? No. If you think of it, just jump in. How about performers or staff when you're doing any sort of tours or performances? Questions around how you're keeping staff safe, musicians safe. And then a question about, is your musician pay scale at all changed for digital performances? That was probably more for
Yeah, so we really have had to do a lot of work to get the musicians back on stage. From a safety perspective, we didn't want anyone coming into our hall until we felt we could keep them safe here. So we have a weekly testing protocol. We're basically have made a musician and backstage crew kind of bubble. So they have a weekly testing protocol, mask wearing at all times, social distancing, sanitization. I mean, all the things that have to happen. They're socially distanced on stage, which has required us to completely redo all the repertoire of our entire season, which has actually been, while challenging, I'm sure for our artistic team, it's been kind of great because we've had the opportunity to showcase work that we normally wouldn't do, and it's really opened that up. So we're also in the midst of doing a study with our University Rice here in Houston, where our musicians actually performed for them, and they are doing particle study to see how far the particles go. So right now we're erring on the conservative side of keeping brass and woodwinds more distanced, more than the 6 feet. But once we get that study back, that will inform our stage setup. So that's really been a lot. I mean, we just tried to think of every single aspect of safety that we could apply. There's staggered entry. Only musicians performing in that same ensemble are going to see each other and encounter each other. I mean, it's every single thing you can imagine. So our musicians have been eager to return and really great and working with us and comfortable with that. And then in terms of payment, our musicians are full-time. So we already have been paying them through this whole thing. And we have been treating these performances like regular services, so regular performance services. And I think, not my area of expertise, I do think we're doing some small incremental payments for for streaming, but since we're only live streaming and we're not keeping these available on demand, so we wouldn't pay the amount we would pay them if we were doing an actual recording that would live on.
Frances?
I can speak just a little bit to maintaining safety when you're working with artists. So our most recent production was Love Noel, the Songs and Letters of Noel Coward, which we filmed together. We filmed 2 actors together, and they're cabaret actors, so they were singing and playing the piano and all of that. And we filmed it at the Players Mansion on Gramercy Park. And we had just the 2 actors, so everybody got tested for COVID beforehand, and we followed all of the taping guidelines that have been out by New York State, and as well as some recommendations. We only had 3 other people on site, and and they were all masked up, and that was a videographer, a sound engineer, and our producing director, Kieran O'Reilly. And then everybody else who was involved was actually watching the filming process on Zoom and participating that way, so that they were not actually all present. And that helped a lot. And we were also creative with blocking to eliminate certain risks. So.
There's some questions about videographers and how you're doing that. Alisa, in terms of recording the tours or your promo video, are you working with if you all want to talk about if you're working with an internal team or if you've hired like external producers to help with that content?
For that video, I believe we worked with someone outside. That wasn't my department directly, so I'm not sure. But I know that we do have a really talented person on the marketing team who does some of the video work. So I'm not sure whether it's a mix of some of her work and some outside. Also, some of that work a lot of what you saw was editing. So there is B-roll that has existed for a while that we use just about those spaces. So those were not videos that we quickly took now to make that video. That was a mix of times where we have filmed performances or tours on site, or B-roll that was, so some of that B-roll was done professionally for sure.
I can speak a little to us. So because of the way our series works, we have a product that we get from our content creators. We take each of our content creators at their skill level, and we just work with that. So some of our shows, we get full package. All we need to do is upload it and put it out there. With some of our other content creators, they send us the raw footage and we do the editing on our side to send it out. It's definitely been one of those, adapt and learn situations, especially on our end with our video editing, but it's been very fun to explore that realm. And so, yeah, but as far as looking towards the future, for our paid content that we're looking towards coming in the fall, we actually are going to be looking to work with production companies for. So we're very excited about collaborating and forming those new relationships to make these new projects.
Alisa, sorry.
I just wanted to say that if anyone was talking about the actual streaming content that we do as opposed to the promo video, that is happening in people's kitchens and living rooms and wherever, like what we're doing right now, that's a program.
Thank you. Frances.
Yeah, so a couple of our productions have all been, so while we were able to film the most recent one in person with a videographer that we hired, our other productions have been filmed on people's phones, iPhones, and then edited together by our house manager, who until April had never done any video editing experience, and now she's done an amazing job. So she's really risen to the cause here, and we've been using green screens to great effect. We send them out to actors all over the country, and for an upcoming production all over the world, and have them film on green screen while our watches and sets up the lighting, and with another creative or lighting designer, Michael Gottlieb, and it's worked out really well. But we are creating most of our videos in-house, and we have hired video editing for a couple of them.
Great. Unfortunately, we've come to our last question. However, we are going to send a form that if anybody registered in the follow-up email you'll get with a link to this recording, we could also have a form where you can ask more questions, because we know how important question asking is, which is why we leave so much time for it. We still didn't get to them all. Maybe the last question we can go around really quickly. If you can just say the video infrastructure you're using and the ticketing platform you're using. There are just some questions to clarify that for everybody. So Frances, Gabby, Gwen, Annie, then Alisa.
So ticketing platform is OvationTix, and video infrastructure is, for the most part, YouTube Live, which we are streaming through restream.io.
Great.
So for Schoolgirls, which is unfortunately over, we're no longer able to stream it. The first go around, we sold tickets through our website, which is a Tessitura-enabled website, and the videos were hosted on Sprout Video. And then the second time around, we did it. The videos were hosted, and the sale happened within Uscreen, all at the same time.
We're selling through Tessitura and giving people a link to YouTube Live.
We sell our tickets also through Tessitura. For our TDO network, of course, we're not selling tickets for that as it's free content, and we're going to be looking towards our ticket endeavor coming this fall. So we'll have more to report then on the digital content front.
Okay. Alisa?
We sell through Altru, and we broadcast through Zoom and YouTube. Fantastic.
Someone asked us, we use StreamYard to record this, and we are broadcasting through YouTube Live. Highly recommend StreamYard. Thank you, panel. Thank you so much. A few quick announcements before we go. I'm certainly becoming one. Our next See Eye to Eye Live will be all about arts organizations using TikTok. On Thursday, September 24th at 1 p.m., I'll be joined by my colleagues at Capacity and arts marketers from American Ballet Theatre and Carnegie Museum, who are both skillfully using TikTok for their organizations. Stay tuned to CI email and social for sign-up information. And if you enjoyed today, please consider joining us October 22nd and 23rd for Boot Camp 2020, Envisioning a New Future for the Arts. I'm so excited for our amazing lineup of speakers who will cover digital programming, digital marketing, leadership and wellness, and equity and inclusion. I want to thank again just our fabulous guests. Everyone worked so hard to put this together, having initial phone calls, then we had group phone calls and sharing content. So just a thank you to Gwen Watkins, Gabriela Jirasek, Annie Penner, Alisa Martin, and Frances Howorth. I also want to thank the Capacity Interactive Marketing and Operations team. It takes a village to bring these things to life, and who work tirelessly to make all of this possible. Thank you all. Good luck and have a great day.